right, welcome everyone. Today we're absolutely delightful to chat with Dr. Olaf Jorgenson, not only the author of Raising Kids, but also the esteemed head of Almaden Country Day School, a renowned expert in child development. Dr. Jorgenson brings a wealth of knowledge and experience in nurturing young minds. So whether you're a parent, educator, or just interested in the journey of child development, you're in for some great insights today. So let's get started and learn from one of the best in the field. So welcome, Dr. Jorgenson. Thank you.
Penny, lovely to be here. Thank you.
All right. So maybe the first question will be, you have been the head of school for 21 years. That's amazing. All right. So, and also you're the author of the parenting books, Raising Kids. We know that this book was released 2 years ago, 2022. So very recent. Lots of research work done behind the scene and with your wealth of knowledge and experience. So from your point of view, how can parents and school be on the same page for the best outcomes in raising children?
It's a great question. You know, one of the most powerful assets a child can have is when the child's parents and the school are aligned in terms of what their philosophy is toward how they manage the children's behavior and learning.
Yes.
It really doesn't make, research shows, and my experience also supports the idea that it doesn't entirely matter what that philosophy is. As long as, you know, there's different types of schools. Where we live here in the Bay Area, there's literally schools across the continuum of philosophy. And those schools, even with very different philosophies, can be very successful. But for the child's sake, it's really important that parents understand what the mission and philosophy of the school is, particularly when you refer to independent schools, which each have a separate individual mission, but also with public schools, understand what the faculty and the leadership of the school value, what the norms are, what the expectations are. And just make sure that as a parent, what the school believes in is what you believe in. And if that's the case, then the child benefits from getting consistent messages at home and at school. And it will help prepare the child, which we talk about in the book. If home life prepares a child for school life, then the child thrives at school. If home life lacks limits, for example, or expectations that are about how the child behaves, and then the child is put into a school setting with very clear limits and very clear expectations, the child struggles. So again, the idea is that making sure that that parents are aligned with and supportive of the school before they enter into the school journey, and that creates a parent-school partnership that's invaluable for the child.
That's wonderful. So mainly the alignment. I'm so grateful to hear that too, because parents may have different parenting styles or values. So from your insights it's okay to have different values. It can be a spectrum, but most importantly is the alignment.
That's true. And my co-author, Sheri Glucoft Wong, is fond of saying that home is the training ground for how the world works. So home is the training ground for the world. Home is the training ground for school. If you are preparing children in the same mindset, with the same goals, with the same beliefs as the school that you've chosen, then the child thrives. Home is the training ground for the world.
Training ground. True. Very important. Yeah, training ground. So how can parents, if possible, may I ask, like, how can parents prepare themselves then, since they are playing a very pivotal role as a training ground, right? And prepare them before entering school as well, right?
Right, sure. Well, I guess, we all look for, every parent looks for resources and support, and there's no shortage of advice among our family members and friends about how to be a parent. The reason that Sheri and I chose to write this book together is that so much of what we saw as resources were providing advice to parents for ways to use a formula for raising children, or to use a formula for preparing children for school. And we don't believe that there is a formula, but we believe that everything starts with relationships. And so our book is about building relationships through everyday parenting, and that is the key to everything that follows. So without and there's lots of good books out there, but we think that our book is one that parents can use sort of like a toolkit. It's if you're having challenges with the way your child relates to siblings or to friends, there's a chapter, short 8 or 9 page chapter you can read to give you some tips. If your child is struggling with following limits and expectations, there's a chapter on limit setting. So it's really meant more as we wanted it to be something you could just put in your pocket and carry around with you, but that didn't quite work. In any case, that's the approach. But I guess I would say to parents as they approach the school age years is just to explore there's no shortage online, and certainly in print materials. There's organizations around parenting. There's no shortage of resources, but just to find those that align, that resonate with your own beliefs and philosophies and hopes for your children, that's really key, because it is so. There is no child is alike, no parent is alike either.
Agree. I'm so glad you give us the autonomy, give the flexibility for parents, because some parents may be more gentle side, some parents may be a little bit a little bit strict, but it's okay as long as it align and resonate with your philosophy, then put it into spot. So actually I'm very interested, because that's related to the point in your book you mentioned parents, they need to stay on your spot. Do you mind to explain a little bit? Maybe it's related to what you have just shared with us.
Sure. Yeah. To be clear, I helped Sheri Glucoft Wong write this book, and the material from the book comes from her. I think she's in her 5th decade of practice as a family therapist, and frequently she'll start a workshop for parents by asking the audience. If you imagine, 200 parents in an auditorium, and she'll ask them, how many of you have challenges getting your kids to bed at night? And all the hands go up. And then she'll ask, how many of you have challenges at mealtime, getting kids to settle down and eat their food? And hands go up all around the auditorium. How many of you have trouble getting kids out in the morning, up and going and out the door? And hands shoot up in the air. And then she'll ask, how many of you have trouble getting your children to buckle their car seat? And you look around the auditorium and there aren't any hands up. And she asks, well, why is that? And parents will say, well, it's the law. And Sheri says, well, your children aren't reading law books. Well, because it's about safety. It's about, it's not negotiable, because we've got to keep them safe. And so Sheri says, okay, so in this moment, when you are absolutely clear, when your mind is clear that it makes sense for them to buckle up, your heart is clear because it's a loving thing to do. Your gut or your instincts, your gut tells you it's the right thing, and you're ready to stand your ground with your feet, or walk your talk. When you're from head to toe, she says, when you're head to toe aligned behind something, an action or a decision that you're about to take, it means that you're on your spot. And parents are on their spot about things like wearing seatbelts or buckling into car seats or not touching a hot stove. These are all things that children tend not to push back about, because when you're on your spot, children can sense it. They can smell it. They know that you mean business, right? And you don't have to be mean, and you don't have to be angry, and you don't have to be, you don't have to nag. You just know what's right for your child, and they know you mean business, and that's being on your spot. So the question is, how do we translate how you're on your spot for seatbelts to the areas in parenting where you struggle, right? Where it's harder, where you're not as effective. And what Sheri likes to tell the audience is that all of us have something that we're doing that's working, right? If we reflect on our parenting, something that we're doing is working. So if we look at those areas where we're successful, and we call those maybe our seat belts, because those are the places where we're on our spot and where we're clear and where we're effective. if we can figure out how to translate how we approach those situations or scenarios over to the ones where we struggle, that's how we can improve our parenting. But it all comes down to being on your spot.
I see. So we as parents too, so need to know where our value is, right? What is important, and then stay on the spot.
Yeah,
Make
I mean,
clear.
sure, and not everything can be, I mean, you can't be on your spot about everything, obviously, right? But what often happens, and Sheri and I love to talk about, Sheri talks about the nag zone. So when you're not on your spot, when you're not 100% behind whatever decision or action you're dealing with your child, the child can sense it. Just as they can sense you being on your spot, they can sense it when you're off your spot. So those are the situations where you're not quite sure. So, you might tell the child 8 times to turn off their computer and get ready for bed. And the child doesn't do anything until the 9th time, when you come in and you're just like beside yourself you're so upset. Well, you've trained the child that she doesn't have to do anything until the 9th time, because you're not on your spot until number 9, right? So that's one of the ways that that we have to realize. You can't be on your spot about everything. If you're not on your spot about something you're asking of your child, then maybe you need to just set it aside for a while until you're ready to stand firm. And again, you don't have to being on your spot doesn't mean you're angry or you're mean or any of those things. It's a loving act.
Yes.
But some people, there's a book called 1, 2, 3 Magic from years and years ago, and there was a time when adults, all across the United States were walking around with their children saying 1, 2, don't let me get to 3, that sort of thing. It's basically a countdown to your spot, right? You don't need to count to 3 to be on your spot, if your children know that. But that whole 1, 2, 3 thing that was going around in the 70s and 80s and early 90s, really that's just all about getting on your spot. But if you get to 3 and whatever 3 is, nothing happens, then you've trained your child that you're not really serious about being on your spot. Yeah.
So as a parent, then we need to be very clear, like what are the things that we are on the spot, and really enforce that.
Yeah.
So that the child knows, okay, I can't test it anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. What are your seatbelts, and what are you going to let slide? Yeah.
Then may I ask, like, maybe last question, how can parents, so this would be parenting, right? Setting the limits. And what in the field, like at school, what are the things that parents should be on the spot? And then what are the things that parents can have a little bit of more flexibility? Can you give us some example, maybe expectation from school, so that the child will be successful once they enter the school?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a whole chapter in the book. Chapter 10 is your role in your child's school life. So it talks about what is the parent's role in school, right?
Yes.
And without reciting the whole chapter, parents sometimes get confused about their relationship to the school and to the teachers. So one of the things that we like to say when we talk with groups of parents about their role at school is that it's important to allow your child to have their life in school as their life, right? So many of us, we've already had 3rd grade. Now it's our child's turn to have 3rd grade. The parents who become so identified with their child, they begin to use language like, oh, we have a history test on Thursday. No, we don't have a history test on Thursday. Your child has a history test on Thursday. You need to step out. And the other side of that, though, too, is that there are parents who, those are the parents who are over-identifying with their child's school experience. Some parents under-identify, and they don't get involved enough, and they don't provide enough support. So finding your spot at school will depend on understanding your role in your child's school life. Homework is another great example where, homework is between your child and your child's teacher. And your job with homework is to be a consultant. So, so for example, if your child is working on homework and doesn't get it done, and it's due the next day, your job isn't to finish the homework for your child. Your job is to let your child go to school the next day and work it out with the teacher, and provide support as needed. But that's different than parents who feel like, we can't let this child lose points, so we need to intervene, because the unintended message that you send to children oftentimes has a real impact on them. And the message you send there is that you're going to step in and rescue them by doing their homework. But it also sends the message that you don't think they're sturdy enough to manage homework on their own. And that will undermine their confidence. So again, without reciting the whole chapter, finding your spot at school depends on understanding your role in your child's school world.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Olaf. So very important, find the parent's role. Identify what kind of role, like not over-parenting or under-parenting, but also let your child be the one who's the student at school to work with the teacher. So parents as a role of a consultant, change their hats now. Even they're in elementary school, right? We can start trusting them. Otherwise, it will affect their self-confidence. They will think that they will continue to rely on parents. Mom, you talk to the teacher. Dad, can you email the teacher, right? But they should be the one who interact with the teacher and be responsible for their homework and other school life activities.
In the long run, because again, as we help these children through everyday parenting prepare to thrive in the world,
yes,
after they leave our homes, the way the world works is that there won't be someone to finish your homework, and we'd like them to. We want the children to learn how to manage, to build their self-confidence, to know that they can do it,
yes,
while they're young, so that they can apply those skills then when they leave our homes.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Olaf. It's so precious to have you, and great advice. And also advice I recommend anyone. Yeah, that's a great work between Dr. Sheri and also Dr. Olaf. So a lot of research work done, and behind the scene, 21 years of head of school for Dr. Olaf, and then more than 50 years for Dr. Sheri. So thank you again for your precious time, Dr. Olaf. It's good to have you.
Thank you for the opportunity.